All right. All right, people. Welcome. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about real music. And in this episode, probably some other stuff as well. I've got a special guest with me today. And I think do you play any instruments? Do you sing guitar? I didn't ask you that. I've got my good friend, Tullian Tchividjian, all right, I call him the punk rock pastor. And I don't know if that's fair, but that's what I've dubbed him over on Facebook. Tullian, how are you?
I'm good, Dave. Thanks for having me on. And to answer your question, no, I do not play an instrument. I think I have a decent voice. At least I've been told I have a decent voice. I'm a music junkie. So it's always frustrated me that I couldn't play an instrument because if I could go back in time, I would learn an instrument. I wouldn't be preaching. I would be in a band doing something musically. Yeah, that's one of my life's greatest regrets is that I never learned how to play an instrument. And if I could learn, it would either be piano or
Mhm.
drums, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I do the make believe drums all the time, and the piano. They said I have the fingers for the piano, so.
yeah.
But I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. So you're a guy who has had a very interesting life, and you're a preacher out on the East Coast here in Florida, in a town called Jupiter, Florida. And
Hmm.
people are probably wondering, why is he having a pastor on? And I'm like, he's not your normal pastor. You're gonna find that out during this. You just um you are very much into grace and telling people about God's love for them, His unconditional love, in a very different way than what I'm hearing out there in most of the Christian world. And people who don't have to. You can do like the Cliff Notes version of your story or whatnot. But just for the audience, if you want to go into a little bit of detail, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah, so my wife Stacy and I live in Jupiter, Florida. Jupiter is about an hour north of Fort Lauderdale, which is where I grew up. Was born in Jacksonville, Florida, raised in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm a Florida native, been in Florida my whole life, except for college and grad school and a couple years after grad school. Other than that, been in South Florida my whole life. Um, I was married before and got divorced back in 2015. At the time, I was pastoring a mega church in my hometown of Fort Lauderdale. I was writing a book a year. Those books were bestsellers. I was on television every week. There's one of them. I was on television every week. I was on the radio every day. And then it all came crashing down. I cheated on my first wife, and as a result, lost my marriage, lost my ministry because I was a public dude. All of it was incredibly public, not just in the Christian world, but everywhere. I come from a famous family. My granddad on my mom's side is Billy Graham, who, for those in your audience who may not know, was a not just a preacher, but a world leader in many regards, was the principal spiritual advisor to every president from Harry Truman to Barack Obama, and was just sort of seen as America's pastor.
Yeah.
Very well known, very famous, preached to more people in person than anyone in history. And so I was born into that family. Amazing experience. Didn't feel the pressure of that at all. My family of origin is just filled with grace and mercy and hospitality and fun and sarcasm and lots of laughter. And so I have no complaints about my upbringing at all. But in addition to my own career being as visible as it was, along with the fact that I came from this, Christian royalty, if you will, my entire fall went viral and I lost everything overnight. I was talking about, writing about, preaching about the radicality of grace and the unconditionality of God's love before I crashed and burned 10 years ago, and believed it with all of my heart. But when I was at rock bottom, it hit different for me. And what what became clear was that all of the things that I believed to be true were actually proven to be true when I was in the crucible of ache and loss and regret and shame and all that stuff. So that made me even more focused. And as a result of crashing and burning and finding myself at, connected to other desperate people who had lost big, I realized that so many people's perception of who God is and how God relates to us is off, is wrong, and at the end of the day, destructive. And so I really wanted to clarify that for that audience. My audience before this was predominantly church people, and my audience now is not predominantly church people. There are some church people that are a part of my audience now, but most of my audience is made up of people who, whether they're rich, poor, old, young, successful, not successful, they have come to terms with their own fallibility and their own desperation in a way that makes them more real and more hungry. And some of those people have some church background. A lot of those people have no church background. But I don't care if you're religious or not, Christian or not, churched or not, the longing for grace when you've screwed up, the longing for forgiveness when you've messed up, those are universal human longings. So I can talk about grace and forgiveness and the unconditionality of love, and of God's love, and people will go, "Oh my gosh, I want this to be true because I know how much I need that." And then I have the ability to go, "It is true." And here's the God who delivers that stuff to you. So my ministry now looks very different. I was off the grid for about 5 years, doing the necessary work that I needed to do, getting the therapy I needed to get, making the amends I needed to make, going through the recovery process that I needed to go through. And then very unexpectedly got a call from a group of people here in Jupiter asking if I would be interested in starting a church, which I said, no, I'm not at all interested in doing that. I've done that before. I'm not doing it again. And quite honestly, I wasn't prepared to entrust my life and livelihood into the hands of Christians, because so often when the shit hits the fan, they run for the exits. So I was dealing with some PTSD when it came to that. But God made it very clear over a period of months that this is exactly where he wanted us. And so my wife, Stacy, and I moved to Jupiter in the spring of 2019, and we launched the Sanctuary, which is the name of our church. I affectionately refer to it as a recovery place masquerading as a church. That you don't have to be a drug addict or a sex addict or an alcoholic to be in recovery. If you are a human being, you're recovering from something. Loneliness, a feeling of loss, dealing with guilt and shame and regret and issues of rejection and abandonment, whatever the case may be. We are all broken people living in a broken world with other broken people. And so we're all in that sense in recovery. And so that's really who we are. That's what we're about. Those are the kinds of people we attract. And we're loving it. And Jupiter is paradise. I mean, I growing up in Fort Lauderdale, just an hour south, I'd only been to Jupiter maybe twice. Spring training happens in Jupiter for some baseball teams, and I had been invited years ago to come do chapels for some of those teams. So that was the only time I was in Jupiter. I mean, it was like, to me, it was the boondocks, but it's not. It's obviously grown a lot, and it's very Jupiter's amazing. We love it. We love what we're doing. We love who we're doing it with. We love where we live. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Hold on. All right. See, I knew something was wrong. All right. So I don't know how
There
the
you go.
microphone went off, but it did. You must have caused that over on your end,
I
because
have no doubt.
you're
If
a
it
very
makes you feel better, if it makes you feel better to blame me, feel free to
well.
do it.
It must be your soft-spoken nature, and like
Yes,
equipment didn't
right.
respond to it.
Mild mannered nature.
Mild
Yes.
mannered, soft-spoken. But I did hear some sad news about you, that you're a Dallas Cowboys fan,
That
dude.
is sad news. That is sad news to me too, by the way. Okay. I have been a Dallas Cowboy fan since I was 6 years old. The first Super Bowl I ever watched was a Cowboys Steelers Super Bowl in 1978. The Cowboys lost that game. Those were the Roger Staubach days, the Tony Dorsett days, the Tom Landry days. And I don't know if it was the star on the side of the helmet, if it
Yep.
was Roger Staubach, if it was Tom Landry's fedora. I don't know what it was that captured me when I was 6, but I have been a diehard ever since. And we had our run in the 90s, and I'm grateful for that. But since then, it has been a depressing thing to be a Dallas Cowboys fan. I love them and I hate them. I feel like being a Cowboys fan is like being married to an unfaithful woman who promises to never cheat again. And, you sort of, okay, maybe this time. And
Maybe.
then boom, I'm just like, man. So my expectations for the Cowboys are at an all-time low, which is the safest place for them to be, because anytime my expectations are raised, they get dashed. So yes, I agree with you. Even for those who hate the Dallas Cowboys, anybody who hates the Cowboys and makes it clear to me that they hate the Cowboys, I'm like, well, you and I have that in common. I hate them too. I
See,
love them and I hate them. I hate that I love them, and I love that I hate them.
say
So,
New England boy here. So, I had the Bruins and the Patriots and the Red Sox, and so
yeah.
it's Celtics. I mean, so coming down to Florida was all like a big disappointment. Just like,
Yeah, oh man. Listen, I am also a diehard Miami Heat fan, so I hate the Boston Celtics.
all
Hate the
right.
Boston Celtics.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
But
fair
that's
enough.
okay. I can hate a team, but madly respect those who passionately support their team that aren't fair weather fans. Mad respect for me for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get to something that happened recently, because I think people will be interested in that. And it's kind of music related, right? It's definitely music related. So you have the Ozzy shirt on today. I don't know, the people can't see it from here unless you stand up, but
It's an ordinary man shirt.
yeah. So you have social media like many people do, and you have your own page on Facebook. And when Ozzy passed away, a lot of people in the Christian world and maybe outside the Christian world were like, hey, Ozzy probably is in hell right now. He's burning in hell because, all of the stuff he did and said.
Because he was the Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness once said, heaven's for people with morals, not him. This is a direct quote, by the way, which was in Parade magazine. More recently, though, Ozzy, after his big ATV injury, said he believed in a higher power, and he believed in a power greater than himself. And, he talked about the ocean, the world, the universe. He's kind of hinting at, like, just think of the universe as this infinite thing. I've been watching stuff lately. I don't know if you've seen any of this new telescope discovery. They're finding out that the universe just goes on forever. It's just infinite. They cannot. Yeah. They cannot measure it. And there's some weird things going on out there with things that defy the laws of physics. That's what they're finding out recently. But anyway, getting back to Ozzy, I mean, you went on Facebook and you said, well, wait a minute. How do you know? I mean, everyone is so quick to condemn, and everyone knows Ozzy's mind, his heart, what he's thinking, and what he thought about God throughout the years. It seems as though he was kind of pointed in the direction of God. And we could talk about the famous preacher that passed away, what was it, 3 days prior to Ozzy. So it was kind of an interesting 1-2 combination where people were praising one person and saying, good job, well done, good and faithful servant. And then Ozzy, of course, is burning in hell because maybe his doctrine was all wrong. He's flying high again, but not where you think. I don't know. So, sorry.
Yeah, and the thing is I've only cried twice when a celebrity has died. One was Philip Seymour Hoffman, the actor, who I thought was the greatest actor of my generation. And he had been an addict for many years. He had been sober for 12 or 13 years, relapsed, and was dead within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So his story itself was sad, which is what made me cry. But just the very thought that I would never see him again was like, what a loss, what a loss. Right. The second time was when Ozzy died. And I can't remember. I was introduced to Ozzy in 4th grade. I went to my friend Preston's house. He was like the bad kid down the block. And anything bad that I was introduced to at that age
It was
came from my friend Preston.
Preston. Yeah.
And he had an album cover of Ozzy's live album Speak of the Devil.
Yeah.
And if you're familiar with that album cover, it's Ozzy's face with like this
Yeah.
jello stuff that looks like blood and it says the devil on it. And at that time, growing up in the home I grew up in, I thought that was like the most satanic thing I had ever seen. It was evil, it was scary.
Right.
But in some way, shape, or form, I was just like, dude, this guy, I was drawn to it for one reason or another. And didn't really know anything about Black Sabbath or
Hmm.
Ozzy's music. But as time went on, and this is, of course, early mid 80s, when hard rock music was really the dominant genre that was on the, radio
Yep.
and getting the most press and all that stuff. I actually started listening to his music and I was like, dude, I mean, Diary of a Madman, Bark at the Moon. I was like, man, and of course MTV was massive at that time.
Hmm.
All they did, unlike today, was show music videos. And I spent hours in front of my television
Yeah.
watching music
You
videos.
and me both.
And
Yeah.
Ozzy's Bark at the Moon video, which was on a loop, it seemed, every hour, I just liked the song and I kind of liked the unconventional, scary nature of his persona.
Yeah.
The first album that I bought and had to hide it in my room, first Ozzy album that I actually bought, it was a cassette tape, was Ultimate Sin,
Mm.
which came out in 1986 or 1985. I can't remember. And then
85. 85.
85, and then
Yep.
the year after that, or 2 years after that, in 87, is when the Randy Rhoads tribute album came out, the live
Yep.
album, and
Yep.
that was the second one that I bought. And I was like, dude, whatever this guy's persona is, his music is good, dude.
Right.
Like
Right.
good.
Oh yeah.
That Killer of Giants
That's
has
a
been
good song.
on repeat for me for the last 5 days. Swear to God, repeat.
That's a good song, bro. That is really
It's a
good.
great song.
Yeah.
Shot in the Dark is a great song. Oh, The Ultimate Sin is a great song. And the entire tribute album, Randy Rhoads tribute album, from top to bottom, is
Mhm.
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Randy's amazing. Was
He
amazing.
he was unbelievable. So I've always been an Ozzy fan,
Hmm.
and I've always been a music junkie of a variety of genres. But of course, being an 80s kid, rock was sort of the primary genre that I listened to and liked. I had to hide my entire tape collection from my mother for fear. And I mean, I'm like Slayer, Anthrax, Metallica, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, all this stuff. King Diamond,
Yep. Yeah.
all the stuff that if my mom saw, she would absolutely have a hissy fit and feel like she needs to cast out demons in our home. But I mean, that was my tape collection. I mean, it was
Sure.
all that's Suicidal Tendencies. I mean, I was into a lot of heavy, hard stuff at the time. So when Ozzy died, I followed his career, of course, after my initial introduction to him, and fell in love with the guy himself. He was
Yeah.
so raw, and he wasn't ever trying to be anybody other than who he was. He was open about his weaknesses. He didn't try to hide things. He wasn't primarily concerned with image. He was just Ozzy.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing. It was childlike in that regard. Every time I looked at him, I was like, this is like a 4-year-old kid who doesn't know what to say and what not to say, how to
Right.
act and how not to act. He's just being himself. And there's something very refreshing about that.
It is.
So I fell in love with the guy. And the fact that he died, what was it, 2 weeks after his final show?
Yeah.
In Birmingham, the Black Sabbath show. I was shocked. I didn't know his health. I knew he was declining, but I didn't know his health was as bad as it was. And so when he died just 2 weeks after that, so all I did on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, X, all I did was post. I mean, it was maybe like a 50-word sort of eulogy, just saying, I love you, Ozzy, and you'll be missed, something
Right.
along those lines.
Right.
And that happened on the heels of this well-known preacher in Southern California who, it's no secret that he and I, from a theological standpoint, disagreed big time and have for 20 years. And he made no bones about that. I mean, he said it publicly that I was dangerous
Wasn't
theologically.
it this book that got him a little irritated at you?
That's the book that caused him to conclude that I was a heretic. So, which is
So you got to
crazy
go
to me.
read
But
this then. Jesus plus
yes,
nothing
yes,
equals
it's not
everything.
heresy. For those who are listening, it's not heresy.
All right.
But so I was very respectful in the wake of his death, in the things that I said about him, and made it very clear that this is not against the man, but the message he delivered, which lives on,
Mm-hmm.
and people are still impacted by it.
Yep.
And I wrote a critical post about the messaging. And of course, all of his,
What
followers came at me with pitchforks. And
let me interrupt you a little bit. What in particular? Let's like get this out a little bit. So what
yeah,
about his message? And you don't have to go into too much detail. I already know
sure.
the answer, but maybe people don't. So what about his message did you take issue with?
Well, there were, layers to that, but I would say the ultimate problem that I had was that the emphasis of his ministry was primarily focused on us and what we need to do and the holiness that we need to pursue and the obedience that we need to be committed to. It was primarily about proving that we are, in fact, loved by God by how we live our lives. Okay, that is the exact opposite of what I say. My message is that God's love for us, his acceptance of us, is in no way dependent on us. It is dependent entirely and exclusively on what he's done for us, specifically in the person and work of Jesus. That God's disposition does not change toward us, regardless of whether we do good or bad. That it is finished. That was
Mm-hmm.
Jesus's final words from the cross. That there's nothing left to be done from our vantage point to get God's love, to get God's approval, to get God's affection, to get God's acceptance, that sort of stuff. And so I was constantly pointing to the fact that even when we are faithless, God is faithful. And he was constantly pointing to the fact that we can know that we know God if we are faithful, if we are obedient. If so, it puts all the emphasis on us, all the onus on us to sort of live our lives with this underlying fear that if we're not getting better, if we're not improving, if we're not obeying more, if we're not becoming more holy, more righteous, more this, that, or the other, then maybe we've deceived ourselves into thinking we're Christians when in fact we're not. That
Mm-hmm.
is, I said this before we started recording, but I don't know if there's anything more spiritually abusive that can happen than for a leader or a preacher to cause people that God loves to question whether or not God loves them. And so that was happening. And there were lots of people who had been under that ministry for quite some time who got out of it because they felt the same way. They just couldn't measure up. They couldn't do enough. They were constantly questioning whether they were loved by God because they weren't getting better enough. They couldn't kick the addiction. They screwed up too bad, blah, blah, blah.
Well, everybody
So,
puts on an act. Everybody pretends so
right.
they could fit
Yeah,
in. I mean,
everybody.
I've
It's
done
a
that at
culture of
church.
fakeness.
Yeah,
Right.
I've done
Yeah.
that at church. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Really?
Yeah.
Everybody's doing great? There's not one person that's doing crappy? I
Well, and
mean,
what that kind of message does is it creates a culture underneath it that is very unsafe for people to tell the truth about themselves.
right.
So I was talking to somebody last week who's really going through it. I mean, this person is dealing with some inner demons that have sort of come out of nowhere. And this person's involved in their church. This person is well known in their church, well respected in their church. And they told me that they almost didn't go to church last week because they were fearful that people around them might detect the struggle. And I said, that is such a sad commentary on the state of church these days. Church should be the safest place rather than the scariest place for people to go, for people to run to
Yeah.
when life is falling apart.
Yeah.
And so when his message was a do more, try harder, get better, climb higher message. My message is a it is finished message. And it is finished message creates a culture where it's safe for you to tell the truth about yourself, for you to take off your masks, for you to be real and raw and unedited, and to confess your struggles and your secrets. It's safe to do that here. A do more, try harder, get better, climb higher message creates a culture where it's very unsafe to do that. And so there's always a lot of fakeness and pretentiousness and arrogance that becomes a part of that culture because people delude themselves or deceive themselves into thinking they're actually better than they are. And they therefore then look down on people who aren't as far along as they are. So I wrote a respectful but critical post about his ministry and message. And then on the heels of that, Ozzy dies, and I write something, very sort of not just respectful, but also praising him in some ways. Like, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your. So all of the followers of this guy who came at me hard for writing something critical about him came at me doubly hard after I said something nice about Ozzy. How could you say something nice about a guy who's clearly in hell and say something critical about a guy who led many people to Jesus, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I spent about a week on social media. I mean, I post daily, but I mean, I spent about I was like, you know what? I'm going to interact with these people, which I don't do all the time because I get too many comments, but I'm like, I'm going to interact with these people to some degree. It was so enlightening what came out of that. And, Ozzy's eternal destination is it's way above my pay grade to try to figure that out. I don't know. God and God alone knows all that stuff. That's behind the curtain stuff. It's none of my business. I was just saying about him, I loved his realness. I loved his rawness. I loved his willingness to not hide his brokenness.
Yep.
I loved his music. Art doesn't need any justification. And so I was like, can't we just appreciate an artist for his art without religionizing the whole thing? Like, well, is he in heaven? Is he in hell? I'm like, bro, that's none of your business.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you didn't know the man. You're not God. You don't know. Can't you just appreciate an artist? And that's what a lot of Christians do when it comes to art in particular, is they evaluate the art based on the spiritual life of the artist. And I'm like, dude, just appreciate the art.
Yeah,
like,
you're going to be disappointed no matter what anyway. I mean,
right.
if you dig in to find out more, it's going to probably be a letdown. You find out more, not just the spiritual stuff, but you might find other stuff out that you don't like about the politics or something else.
Sure.
And be like,
yeah.
Right.
So my whole point to these people was I'm not going to hide the fact that I did not like this guy's sermons and I did like this guy's music. I mean, if you don't like it, you can come up with any conclusion you want. But the bottom line is, yes, this was critical and this was not, because I liked his music better than I liked his sermons. And because this one is claiming to speak for God, people will tune in thinking that God is speaking to them through this. And that's what I was warning against.
So, right. And
that was fun.
Yeah. And you and I did a little video about you and what you had said, and people very positive. I would say about 95%. We had a couple of people that are like, oh, that guy. And I was like, yeah, that guy who's probably more like me than most of the people that I have, or at least he doesn't pretend to be somebody else. He's just real, and he's articulate, and you do a lot of like psychology, and you even commit sociology. I've heard you do it in the pulpit, which is very different. Like you're like kind of a Renaissance guy, and that's the way I see you. And other people may say, well, he's not talking about the Bible enough. He's not he's not squeezing those verses out to get every, what did the Greek mean here and how, those sorts of things. And I was telling you before we started recording, I'm like, I fall asleep listening to this stuff. I'm like, it's interesting to a point.
You fall asleep listening to my stuff?
No, not your stuff. Someone else's stuff. I told you beforehand. I've got you on like my phone, I'm back in 2023 listening to, Misled, Misfits. We're all a bunch of misfits. I do my Tullian impersonation walking around the neighborhood. I'm like, we're all misfits. And the lady's looking at me like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine.
Right, they're right. They call the doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
right.
this guy. It's this guy in Jupiter, Florida. That's all. He's a little different.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is my dad was a psychologist, so I grew up, under his roof, and he was the best psychologist I'd ever encountered. He was born and raised in Switzerland, so he was European.
Wow.
PhD from Marquette University, opened a private practice in South Florida in the late 70s, which is why I grew up down here. Just, I mean, so I was in that world, a
Yeah.
world where people's problems were taken seriously.
Right.
So that's always had a big influence on me. Psychology is nothing more and nothing less than the exploration of the human condition, the human struggle, getting under the surface of things and asking why. Why am I triggered by this? Why am I afraid of that?
Yep.
Why do I gravitate toward this instead of that? All those things. It is an exercise in increasing self-awareness, and that is huge to me. I was a philosophy major in college because that is where my interest was primarily, which bled over into sociology. And then, of course, in graduate school, in seminary, the primary focus was theology. So I've kind of got this three-legged stool going on. There's this, sort of psychology, philosophy, theology, stool that I sit on. And it's amazing to me that all three of those things, understood correctly, overlap beautifully. They, one asks the questions, the other gives the answer, and the other gives the explanation for the answer and how we receive the answer. So yeah, I mean, all of those things are very much a part of who I am. It's a part of my DNA. It's what I bring to all of my content, whether I'm speaking or writing or whatever. So that is very much a part of who I am and what I'm about, and have always been that way.
Yeah. So at this point, we're going to try to explain why you like electronic music, though.
So
go ahead. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, my audience will accept you. We're gonna practice grace here. We're not gonna judge. All right. Go ahead.
Now, listen, before I give my defense of electronic music, I want your audience to know that I am, in fact, a diehard music fan, that there is no genre of music in the 80s that I am not extremely well versed in. Everything from British New Wave to hard rock to classic rock to, hair metal to new wave. I mean, a sort of synth pop, all of it. Like, I mean, I loved it all. Everything from Ozzy to the Thompson Twins. I loved it all. From, Depeche Mode and Erasure and Yaz to Rat and Motley Crue and Whitesnake, all that stuff.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I'm one of you is all I'm saying.
That might kind of make things better. I don't know, but we'll find out.
I hope so. Anything before like late 70s I'm into. There are some bands that a lot of people don't know about, bands like Triumph, Canadian three-piece band.
Now you're talking. See, now you're talking my language.
No, I love
Triumph.
They were sort of a poor man's Rush.
Yes.
And I'm a huge Rush fan. So I am incredibly well versed out of a sense of deep desire and affection for all of that stuff. I've said before that the only music that I don't like is country, guttural death metal, and contemporary Christian. Everything else is fair game.
He said contemporary Christian. Did you hear that, everybody?
Yeah. I'm just not into the amount of cheese that is often offered in and through those songs. So regardless, so I say all of that as a preface to go, I'm one of you. I can run with you. Okay. I'm happy that you can run with me, all that stuff. And you and I could probably talk music alone for 14 episodes
And we'll
with
eventually
ease,
have to do that. We'll have to have you back. Just say, okay,
just
here's
to
a
talk about
band.
music.
What do you think
Yeah.
of this band? Let's
Dude,
go. You know.
those are my favorite conversations to have, and everybody close to me knows that those are my favorite conversations
All
to have.
right.
I
So it'll
could
be a
literally
part.
talk music. Yeah.
It'll be like a series, like you do. It'll be like a 14-part series on Motley Crue.
I
You
love
know.
it.
Yeah.
We are that. Listen, I'm holding you to that.
All
I
right.
need an outlet. I need a public outlet to talk about this stuff. You're my
This is
guy.
this
So,
is cool. I finally have a friend, everybody. Because I
so
typically go
I
ahead.
got into this is how I got into electronic music. I went through an industrial music phase in the early 90s, bands that a lot of people probably haven't heard of. Ministry,
Yep.
um,
Listen to
uh,
him in
Front
college.
Front 242,
Yep.
Frontline
College.
Assembly,
Yeah.
Skinny Puppy,
College.
KMFDM, all
Yep.
of that stuff. I
Yeah.
was big into that. And there were some clubs in Miami at the time that were devoted to nothing but that music. Loved it, was all into it, deeply into it. It was just the right level of darkness and mystery for me, so I
Yeah.
was naturally drawn to that. There was a club that I used to go to in Boca Raton, Florida, which is about 40 minutes south of where I currently live, and it was called Purgatory. And it was all that kind of music. It was kind of alternative, but industrial, kind of hardcore. But then at about 2 a.m., the music would change and they would start playing rave style music that was coming in from the UK. And I remember the first time I heard it, and I was like, holy hell, what is this? Like
Mhm.
it was a mixture of symphonic sounds with electronic energy. It had an industrial feel to it. I loved it. It was also danceable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I loved it. It was like from the moment I heard it, it became an immediate needle in my vein. And at that time, it was fairly undeveloped over here. It was
Yeah.
not super developed over here. So it was a lot more techno
Hmm.
back in those days. It's not that. I mean, they still have that as a genre, as a subgenre of electronic music, but I'm not into that. Don't really like that. It's too noisy and not melodic enough for me. But just like there is in rock music and electronic
Yeah.
music, there are thousands of genres. And there are
Right.
some genres that I can't stand. What I just described, that kind of hard techno,
Right.
dubstep, that sort of stuff, I don't like. But the more melodic house music stuff, the stuff that has real emotional intelligence to it, it creates moods. It helps me uncover parts of me, sort of emotional parts of me that for whatever reason, I can't explain it other than the fact that that's the effect that it has on me. I like the culture. I like the vibe. My kids and I go to music festivals on a regular basis where this music is the predominant genre of music. Love the audience and the crowd that is attracted to it. So I've just been an electronic music lover. For anybody who's listening who has no idea what I'm talking about, check out Sultan and Shepherd, Lane 8, Above and Beyond, people like that. You'll know what I'm talking about. There is a level of emotional intelligence to that kind of music. And these guys are like maestros of moods. They really are. The ones who know how to produce well and to create the layers of sounds that they do are brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. I know it's not a traditional instrument that they're playing, and some people who are into that criticize producers and DJs for not being traditional instrumentalists. Some of them actually are. Ben Bomer, who's one of my favorite, I mean, he's a trained pianist. So some of them actually are, but they just have a way of understanding the longings of the human condition and putting sound to it that helps you get in touch with it. For me, that's what it does for me. So I'm a lover of it. Miami in many ways is kind of the at least on the eastern seaboard is kind of the seedbed for that. So a
Hmm.
lot of these guys make their treks to Miami throughout the year. So I get a chance to go to a lot of clubs, a lot of shows, listen to the music I love. I have 3 kids. and one of them's 30, one of them's 23, and the other one's 28. And my 28-year-old son and my 23-year-old daughter also love this music. So they're my companions whenever we go to the shows or the clubs or whatever. So it's kind of like, I enjoy that with my kids too. So yeah, that's my explanation for why I love electronic music. It does something for me in the deepest parts that I can't really explain. So anyway.
That was a good explanation. That almost made me want to check it out. I might.
I'm going to send you stuff when we stop the
All right.
recording. I'm going to send you some stuff, and you may or may not like it. But I'm not talking about like that's not the kind of stuff I'm
Okay.
talking
All
about. I'm
right.
talking
All right.
about like
More sophisticated.
real bona fidely melodic. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm not
When
into
you
that
said
stuff. Like the
melodic,
Night at the Roxbury stuff. No, I'm not into that.
that's a key word for me when you said
Yeah,
melodic, because one of my hangups from when grunge hit, and I'm not a
right.
huge grunge guy. I'll just be honest with you, but
Sure.
I would have been okay with grunge and all the stuff that was still there. But
Hmm.
the music industry, the record labels, everybody said, you know what, this stuff is easier to market. It's not cheesy. It appeals to these kids that are struggling with their lives and so forth. But see, music to me, all right, I don't want to go to a dark place most of the time when I'm listening to music. I would
Hmm.
rather go to, like Happy Gilmore says, my happy place, right? I'd rather be
Yeah.
happy and hear something that's going to be a little more uplifting. Not
Hmm.
always, but for me,
Sure.
sometimes it's a guitar riff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's something. It's a lyric. I was listening to the Heart of the Matter yesterday by Don
Hmm.
Henley, and I put it on like
Hmm.
17 times in a row. And I posted it on my Patreon. I gave this little thing how a song like this
Hmm.
actually speaks in a way that a lot of religious people don't know how to speak. Talking about
Absolutely correct.
forgiveness. And it's Don Henley writing with, like, I don't know, Danny Korchmar, somebody like that helped him write the
Hmm.
song. And it just, you hear that on the radio and it kind of stops you in your tracks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the kind of
Yeah.
stuff you could probably build a sermon on a song like that, you know?
No, you could. You could. In fact, I quote that song in my most recent book, Carnage and Grace, which is a very raw
Oh,
memoir of the
wait,
last 10 years of my life.
hold on. There it is.
There it is.
Available in the
Carnage and
store.
Grace.
Yeah,
Confessions of
Amazon,
an
right?
Adulterous Heart. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it. So I quote that song in that book. But yeah, if going to a brighter place is what you long for in listening to music, the stuff I listen to specializes in that. It
All
really
right.
does. I mean, I refer to it as happy vibes, not unrealistic vibes, not fantasy vibes. I mean real bona fide happy vibes grounded in reality, because as dark as life can be, as hard as life can get, there is brightness all around us if we would
Right.
only have the eyes to see it. And this music for me helps me see the bright in the dark
Yeah.
oftentimes.
And you,
So
a lot of times, and I've only watched like 100 or so sermons of yours so far. But a lot of times you'll always say good food, good music, good,
hmm.
good whatever. And
Yeah,
music is always in there for you. You're always like,
always.
good music is like a spiritual thing. Like God gives you all of these. Hey, God gave rock and roll to us, according to
I
Kiss and then
yes.
Argent a long time ago. That's the original. But anyway, man, we better go because time's running out here. I know you got an appointment to do here, but tell us a little bit about the sanctuary before we go. Where it's located in Jupiter,
In Jupiter,
Florida.
yeah. Yeah.
You just a regular Sunday 10:30, right?
10:30 a.m. Yeah, we have it's a relatively small in-person gathering. I mean, it's 150 people, 200 on a, big Sunday. Our online audience is massive. It's
Yep.
global. So most of the people who would tune in aren't in the room. They're somewhere else in the world. And we live stream it all. We post all of the content on the Sanctuary Jupiter YouTube page, Sanctuary Jupiter Instagram, the Sanctuary Jupiter Facebook. So you can easily find all of the content that is created and distributed through those channels. And yeah, I mean, if you are a person, if any of your listeners out there are a person that has always been relatively skeptical about churchiness or religion or even God in general. I think you could listen to the content that we produce and realize that the God we're talking about is not the same thing as the God you may be rejecting. And I said this earlier, but I've never met a human being who rejects forgiveness when they fail, grace when they've tanked, mercy when they need it. That is a universal human longing. And that's who God is. That's what God is about. And so a lot of times, those who are resisting or rejecting God are rejecting a caricature of God that's been delivered to them via religious channels. And that's just not who he is. And so I think you'd find it, I think people would find it refreshing. I'm very real, very raw, very open. I got canceled by the evangelical church world 10 years ago, so I can say whatever the hell I want, and if they come at me, what are they going to do? So I'm very free. I don't play the religious game. I don't talk, Christianese. This is very much real life stuff, and it's very confessional for me in the sense that a lot of my sermons are me exposing my own struggles, my own secrets,
Yep.
and my own sense of failure and regret, and then showing how God's grace has always met me in the darkest corners. So it's very memoir-ish, the content is. So yeah, I
Aren't
think
you just
people.
saying the same thing over and over again in different ways, though?
I say that all the time. I say, listen, my job is not to say 10,000 different things, it's to say one thing 10,000 different ways. And that's it. I mean, that's kind of the exploration of your own condition provides you with limitless
Hmm.
illustrations.
Yeah.
And to be able to dissect that stuff honestly, have the courage and the bravery to go down deep under the surface and dissect that stuff, and then to be able to connect the dots between our deep need, our insecurities, our fears, our struggle, our pain, our sense of loneliness, to the radicality of God's gracious provision for us it's a beautiful thing. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. It's therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
So
All right. Couple more things before we go. First of all, your wife is fantastic.
she's awesome.
I've listened to her as well, and she's
Yeah.
just a great support to you. I just want to mention
She is an
her.
amazing support to me. Yeah.
Stacy is her name.
Stacy, she's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
your violin player, well, your entire worship band is
Yeah.
it's just it's like, I hate to use this term, but it is next level. I was
Yeah.
not going to use that, but it is. So we were talking before, and names of churches that for 100, Alex. It's like it's so organic, and the
Mhm.
singing and the playing, everything is just so right there,
Yeah,
and it's very emotional.
we never have more than four people on stage, which is unlike a lot of churches that have,
Yeah.
20 people.
Right.
It's very acoustic.
Yep.
It's very coffee house-ish.
I love
The
that.
level of talent we have on stage is unbelievable. Our violin player, Carl, he and I have been friends for 20 years. He is a recovering addict himself, so he gets it. He gets the human struggle. He plays through that, which is amazing. I mean, he's played Radio City Music Hall. I mean, the guy is like next level.
Wow. Wow.
And just an amazing, amazing talent, like amazing talent. Our primary worship leader, Trey Heffinger, is like Nashville level talent, voice wise and guitar wise. We don't have a drum set on stage. We have a cajon.
Hmm.
And it just gives every song a heartbeat. So it's great if you're listening to it online,
Yep.
but there's nothing like hearing it in the room. I mean, it's profound. Every week I'm sitting there going, we are so ridiculously blessed.
Yes,
It's
I sent
unbelievable.
you. I sent you a message. I was just
You
because I
did.
watched this
Yeah.
Sunday. I watched from beginning to end,
To
and I
end.
was like, "Man, this is so good." Again, it's not boring. It's
Yeah.
the message is
It's
great.
alive.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. There's something going
Yeah.
on there. I mean,
Yeah.
God might be doing a thing there. Who knows? It's just
Possibly.
yeah.
Possibly.
But it might be doing it. And you know what? I here's a prediction. I think that church is going to grow exponentially. That's my prediction. I told you I was going to make that prediction.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to get a lot of attention. Whether it's
Mm,
good attention or bad attention, you're going to get a lot of attention because
mm,
this message, the
mm,
message that you are bringing, I think is very much needed in this age where everybody is tired, frustrated,
mhm.
lonely,
Yeah.
depressed, always wondering, I'm not doing enough. I'm not getting any better. Why? I'm
Mhm.
getting a little better and then I have a setback. You know what I mean? So
Mhm. Right, right. Yeah.
you guys give
Yeah.
like a landing place for those
Dude,
misfits.
that's a huge compliment. And if the more honest we become, the more we have to admit that regardless of your life's circumstances or where you are in life, we are all misfits in one way, shape, or form. And so embracing that truth about ourselves is very freeing. And I do. We called it the sanctuary for that reason, because we want it to be a safe place for people to be honest, to tell the truth about themselves without others flinching or blinking. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's hugely complimentary. And let me also say before we go that your 15-minute video about me regarding Ozzy was so good. If any of your listeners or watchers haven't seen it, I highly recommend. You are on point, articulate, enjoyable to listen to. I mean, I told you before we started recording that my wife and I listened to it together right when you sent it, and we were both like jaw dropped surprise, like, holy shit, this guy gets it, dude.
Well,
Like, gets it.
I have to practice.
So
It's Gerhard Ferde, right? Gerhard.
Gerhard Ferde. Yeah, so it's spelled Forde, but it's pronounced like Fuhree,
Yeah.
or Dee, Ferde. Yeah.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. It's
Dude, you're doing just fine,
I'm
buddy.
kind of new. I'm kind of new. I'm a new kid in class, so I'm trying to do my best
No,
here.
you're good, man. You're
I
good.
appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
It's great, and you know what? We're gonna have you back just to talk. We'll just throw a band out there that we
I
both grew
love
up
that.
listening to, and
I
you can
love
say
that.
what you like about it, what you don't like about it, or we'll just do stuff
Give
that's
it,
good.
let's my computer's telling me that my computer's about to die. So I don't want to get in too much longer, but just as a teaser,
All right.
start. Just throw a band my way. I'm out of curiosity.
All right. Well, I have a lot of people that like Journey on this channel.
Okay.
You like
Do you?
Journey? Oh yeah.
Do you
Well,
like
yeah.
Journey?
I
Yeah.
like him. I
Yeah.
saw him when I was 16 years old, when Steve
Oh,
Perry was
yeah.
in his prime, and I got
Yeah. That's
free entry, free tickets.
there are very few bands today, in my opinion, like a Journey, like a Def Leppard, where every song on
Yeah.
a particular album is good.
Right.
Everyone.
Mhm.
And there are some Journey albums, and certainly Hysteria by Def Leppard, that are amazing top to bottom throughout.
Yeah.
Journey was a ridiculously talented. Jonathan Cain is a guy that I've met, and
He's
he's
down.
married to a friend.
Well, no, he's not down near you. He's not down near
He's
me,
in
but
Orlando.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
up
he's
up.
in
Yeah.
Orlando. Yeah, and just a remarkable guy. I mean, he's just a remarkable guy. And but I love Journey. I don't know if you remember back in the early '80s when painters caps were like the big
Yep.
thing, the big
Yeah.
trend. At least they were down here in Florida. And you had like the ones with the band names were the ones. I only had one painter's hat. I was probably in sixth grade, and it was a Journey one. So I love Journey. I mean,
Oh
they Journey did not write off the top of my head a bad song that I
no,
can think of.
no.
I'm
Plus,
sure they did, and if I dug deep enough, I'd find one. But they did not write a song that was not good, as far as
Painter's
I'm concerned.
Cap is marketing. Herbie Herbert was a genius, and
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons they became his band. I mean, he's the guy who pulled Steve into the band, insisted he be in the
yeah,
band. The other guys didn't want him in the band, and then they made a lot of money. They were
yeah,
corporate rock supposedly, but when
yeah,
you look back at the level of talent.
yeah. It's crazy,
It is crazy. I mean, Neil Sean. I mean, who plays guitar like
amazing.
that?
I know,
Nobody.
amazing.
Nobody.
We'll
Well,
have to talk. One of the conversations has to revolve around David Lee Roth's Van Halen versus Sammy Hagar's Van Halen.
you're gonna get. I'm gonna get. We're gonna get hate from all directions. That'll be great. I'll send them all. All right, I've got your address. I've got where the church is. I'll have the people show up there. It's
There you
his
go.
fault.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
All
perfect.
right. Tullian, God bless you,
Thanks,
man.
man.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, man.